So, welcome everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gabriel. I work for the campus and I have the great pleasure to introduce our guests, Erik Bordeleau and Olle Saloranta Strandberg. Tonight, they will give a talk titled The Sphere Towards New Ecologies of Funding in the Arts. And this is the fifth talk of our lecture series called Commons für wen ist die Kunst? And as the other lectures, we will have 45 minutes presentation roundabout, and after that there will be room for questions. Erik is a philosopher, writer, and calls himself a fugitive planner. Recently, he got hired as a researcher at Lisbon Nova University in cinema and philosophy. He has published and co-edited several books and articles in different languages at the intersection of political philosophy, contemporary art, world cinema, blockchain cultures, finance, and media theory. A German translation of his book on the commons, Das Kommen des Kommunismus, eine Kartografie, was published at Büchner Verlag earlier this year. And I think we got the book here. Yeah, so if you want to have a look. In collaboration with Saloranta and De Wilder, he developed the Sphere, a Web 3.0 infrastructure for self-organization in the performing arts. And one member of Saloranta and De Wilder, Olle Saloranta Strandberg, is joining us tonight via Zoom from Stockholm, as you see. We are very happy that we managed to have this connection tonight. Olle is director and artist working with circus as a starting point. During the 2010s, he was a director for the company Circus Cirqueur, where his productions played over 600 times for a worldwide audience. He says that, in secret, he became increasingly interested in and involved in the crypto community, where he has got lost somewhere near the forest edge of the dark crypto forest. There, Olle has become the founder and artistic co-worker of the company Saloranta and De Wilder, as well as one of the initiators of the Sphere. So what happens if someone coming from circus enters in the crypto forest and dreams about the Sphere and new ecologies of funding for the arts? If you go to the website of the Sphere, thesphere.is, which I recommend you to do, and you click on the About button, you will find these lines. What's all of this about? You might ask yourself when entering this place. Trust us, we do understand you. We also felt like that not long ago. Then, before we knew it, we were inside looking out, asking ourselves, what's all that with the Sphere about? And with these questions, I would like to hand over the microphone to you, Erik and Olle, and wish us all a nice and healthy night.
Okay. Thank you, Gabriel. Well, thanks a lot for the invitation. It's really, really a pleasure to be here. Gabriel and I, we met about a year and a half ago, just after we got the grant that is financing the Sphere for the next 3 years. Actually, the next 2 years, we're 1 year in. And we started discussing questions about funding in the arts, you know. And so I'm really, really happy that we can prolong this conversation here tonight. And Olle, I don't know if you want to say a little something to our audience here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see you guys, but thanks for being here. Yeah, I also met Gabriel around the same time. I think we've been in the same reading group at a certain moment, and met around some Sphere like sessions that we've had. Yeah, I'm as Gabriel said, my background is really in the circus arts originally. Of course, I'm also I've been developing as a choreographer and director, dramaturg as well. But I'm very connected to what you can call the contemporary circus ecosystem or so. And I think I do not want to like say too much about myself here now. I think you kind of got my background and where I'm lost at the moment, and we go from there.
Yeah, so maybe the encounter with Saloranta and de Wilder happened for me January 2018. I was part of a pseudo startup, more of a think tank called Economic Space Agency. We were invited in an exhibit called Manipulate the World that was curated by Golden and Seneby. And it's I'm mentioning because it's really an encounter between different worlds. Like Olle was suggesting before, we went deep into the rabbit hole of crypto economics over the last few years, and we are trying to articulate the new possibilities of organization based on blockchain or inspired by blockchain for the performing arts. So that's really, like in a nutshell, the sphere proposition. And we articulated it into a grant because that's roughly the only way you can finance art these days, like public funding. And we didn't get it the first year, but then we got it the second year. And here we are deploying some sort of Gesamtkunstwerk for the 21st century. At least it feels like it from within. It's pretty all-encompassing. It's going in many directions. It's really thrilling. It's a co-learning site. You can envisage it in this way. We are learning from each other, trying to pick up with blockchain, among other things. You must have heard about NFTs by now. And we're really trying to wrap our minds around how can we create a new business model or new ecologies of funding for the performing arts, for circus artists. And that's really coming from Saloranta and de Wilder, Sarah and Olle, coming from the circus world, and me, more of a philosopher, dilettante, touche-à-tout, that is articulating the connection with the crypto world.
I can add something, since Sarah has been mentioned a few times also. I started working with the producer, Sarah de Wilder, back in 2014. And we've worked together as a director-producer duo, more or less, since then. And we formed Saloranta and de Wilder in like officially in 2018. And we are looking for really new modes of organizing and new formats for the contemporary circus to exist in between and outside of the genre somehow. And just Sarah comes from the producer side of the performing arts sector. So that's how our collab started. And now we're just basically doing everything together more or less. And we're becoming more and more as we proceed with the sphere. Just wanted to mention that as well, because Sarah is definitely a part of this, even though she's not here at the moment.
So, Olle, I'm now sharing the screen with a couple of slides. Our website is called thesphere.as, and we're using the as operator as a bridging device between the different interests and components composing the sphere. I guess since we're in a university, I'm gonna take the sphere from a higher conceptual ground. It will all land in due time into our current proposition, but I thought it would be interesting to start with the idea of the commons, since it's the main theme of this series, and also because I've been very much interested in the question of the commons for many years. That's really where I'm coming from philosophically, like in terms of political philosophy. So as Gabriel was mentioning, my book on the commons has been translated recently in German. The title in French is How to Save the Common of or from Communism, Le commun du communisme. So there's a bit of an ambiguity. But the idea is clear, is like, how do we reclaim the idea of the common for the 21st century? So that was like my work for many, many years. and that's definitely at the core of the sphere proposition as well. Like, we're trying to create a funding model for the performing arts that is very much inspired by, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Elinor Ostrom. She's a Nobel Prize in economics, and she has theorized the ways by which commons can come and supplement or replace other forms of economic organizations. So maybe because these are the concept, like, we're bridging different worlds. We're into the circus world, we're into the crypto world, blockchain, crypto economics, but we're also into let's say philosophy or like conceptual practice, and it really matters when it comes to an interdisciplinary or a transdisciplinary encounter. And the question of the common, you can understand it in two ways, I would say. One is what we have in common as living beings. So to extend the realm of the sensible is something that matters in an age where the world is considered as a resource to be extracted. How do we extend the conception of the world as commons so that we promote forces of sharing? And we like to talk about speculative generosity, like a way of being together, basically. So that's one understanding of the common. The other understanding of the common, which is complementary, is less about the sensible common and more about ways of distributing the common. Sharing and distributing. There's a book that you might be familiar with called Le Partage du Sensible, The Distribution of the Sensible by Jacques Rancière. So in French it's called Le Partage du Sensible. So you hear more about the sharing of the sensible, but in English it's been translated by the distribution of the sensible. So the distribution part comes closer to what we're dealing with the sphere, which is, and then it opens up to questions of shares, parts, stakes, mutual stakeholding. That's the type of distribution of the sensible or the distribution of the commons that can be reinvented or reimagined when you start dealing with blockchain technology. Blockchain technology here, you most probably have heard about crypto currencies like Bitcoin, Blockchain technology, before allowing to create new currencies, is to be understood more as an institution building technology, with the idea that the code is law. That was like a meme or like a leitmotif from the early days of blockchain. But like, if you want to understand the incredible effervescence that is taking over Web 3.0, you really need to give it a try at what does it mean to start inventing new modes of distributing the common, new modes of mutual stakeholding, new modes of creating what we like to call collective fractal ownership. So this is really at the core of the sphere, and not just the sphere. There's a whole world out there of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. So that's really one of the, like, our main challenge, our main interest is to try to figure out how we could turn the circus artist network into a potential Commons 3.0, into a network with consequences, so that everyone in that network can be better. So on this note, maybe Olle, I don't know if you want to say something on that subject. I'm otherwise going to introduce our little manifesto.
Yeah, I think we should go for it right away with the manifesto for sure, or what to call it.
Yes, so Olle will now say something, highly script. So just for la petite histoire, this video, we filmed it about a year ago, last October, for the EU Creative Europe institution. And it gives a pretty good sense of where we're coming from a political perspective.
you can also think about is that it's a live streamed event. So what you see, what's recorded here, was also just like I'm sitting now, but I was standing in another location. So it was not pre-made. It was just straight into the meeting. Yeah, we winged it good.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we can talk about it later. Here.
Hi, my name is Olle. I'm an artistic director, a circus artist, and one of the founders of The Sphere. Right now, at the end of 2020, the need for an alternative organizing system for the art world is more obvious than ever. We propose a system that distributes power differently between actors and stakeholders and incentivizes artistic inventiveness rather than stifling it. The Sphere is a radically innovative P2P community platform that enables the performing arts ecosystem to initiate creative collaborations and implement new funding strategies. With The Sphere, we want to create a space where the circulation and experience of value is felt differently. A space that allows us for common risk-taking, trust and collective compositions beyond what is deemed possible. In The Sphere, everyone is already an entrepreneur taking from the in-between and an entrepreneur giving to the in-between. We are always already at stake with each other, partnered all the way down, artist and audience brought together to share the risks and opportunities of making art. But how do we transform the traditional modes of value capture and open it up for the benefit of the community? How do we transform economic loops into social and artistic flows and back? One thing is clear, the time for merely complaining about one's precarity is over. With blockchain technology, economy is now a design question. This is the age of monetary experimentation. The financial class doesn't have the monopoly over risk-taking practices or the craft of its instruments. The economy, as we know it, needs a full reset. Everyone knows it, but no one seems to know how to proceed. We need to undo business as usual. We need to undo the economic forms that holds us mesmerized and captive. We need to make our economy weird again.
Just to say what I meant earlier was just that it was happening as a live stream. So we were rehearsing for a performance for youth, and in this middle of this performance we had this occasion where we should present everything for EU. So we managed to put it together in this way, and enter the meeting like this instead of just sitting on a chair talking. And it's yeah, and we're happy for the gesture.
It is an online meeting with the other grantees of the EU Creative Grant, and everyone was presenting their slides, and he just came in with that. And the lady from the European Union, she was very funny. She said, "Oh, it doesn't seem to end very well, does it?" So anyway, that kickstart our first year, the season 1 of the Sphere. And the Sphere, it's important to say, it's not a startup. It's a research creation project. So the research matters. We have 3 main stream of research. One is called the Anarchive, that is about reflecting on how artistic practices can be formalized and stay informalized in relation with an economic system. So the idea of, because basically blockchain is an archiving machine. You can just register stuff on the blockchain. It's a ledger. And what does it mean to register, to record performances? What do you record exactly? And what do you want to record in order to have a future, which is the anarchiving part. So this is a very important artistic component that you will see in our current proposition, matters tremendously. The second axis of research is cryptoeconomic design, so really more about how do we build the infrastructure. We're part of a wider open source coding movement. We're part of the team is based in Berlin. There's a lot happening at the level of Web3 development there. So we're creating what we call a quadratic alliance with other institutes, other people that are trying to create the commons for the art. So I can mention here maybe Black Swan DAO that is working with Trust in Berlin. There's also the Further Field Gallery based in London. They have been really at the forefront of net art for the last 20 years. They published an amazing book about art and the blockchain already back in 2018. That is really an important reference. And they have worked on a quadratic voting infrastructure called Culture Stake that we are reusing, modifying and using for our own proposition, as you will see later. The third axis is called Accounting Otherwise, and it's more about it's like an open reflection about value, theories of values, gift economy. You know, when you start talking about modes of organizing, creating commons, there's a lot of things that get discussed nowadays around these issues. So we gathered them around the Accounting Otherwise research strand. So we had two workshops. The very first one that you can see here, Reimagining Art and Value Flows, the Sphere as Digital Commons. That was back in November last year. And then I co-organized the second one with Yael Sheril, around, again, issues of accounting otherwise. Maybe I can show you here. No, is it here? Oh yeah, here it is. So that was back in May, and we created a whole, I mean, there was many things. We had a reading group around gift economy, and we also organized a LARP, live action role playing. So here you can see. So we had a whole LARP around the question of collective fractal ownership. So what does it mean now that we have a new tool that facilitates collective ownership of things? The technology doesn't suffice. You know, culture comes before structure, and we need to open up the imagination for what does it mean to collectively own things, which blockchain makes possible. So we had this crazy LARP that we commissioned to Goldman Sachs, and they came up with an open park proposition about, so they created a scenario where Tesla Gigafactory that is being built in Schönefeld in the suburbs of Berlin, for some reason they had to leave, and basically the city of Berlin was offering the land to the collectivity. So open park proposition is a LARP in which a collectivity is broken into 4 teams, and we play out what would it mean to become the owners, the collective owners of the land that was left alone after the departure of Tesla. So it's very playful, but it allows to start playing with what type of collective powers can we summon as we start playing with new tools that allows us to create new collective institutions, basically, non-state-based emergent institutions. So, if I come back, if you allow me to keep on going just a little bit further on that strand of thought, like what we're doing is I don't want to say it this way, but it's groundbreaking in a way, and we feel it on our bodies, in our souls, and one way to say it is that we are in a process of digital soul searching. Another way to say it is that we are looking for ways to summon a digital soul. And I really like this passage from Mille Plateaux, from 1,000 Plateaux, that explains, it seems maybe a bit too abstract, but it really matters when it comes to, basically Web 3.0 is about community building around digital assets. Digital assets can be many things. It could be, for instance, circus performances. But the thing is, you need to start imagining how you create a virtuous circle around these said assets. And that can be thought of as creating something like a digital soul, a collective digital soul. And this quote from Mille Plateaux for me is important because it gives a sense of what it means to create a swirl, you know, like when in a pool, because one of the things that we're playing with, and it's very serious, is questions of liquidity pools. Blockchains allow for the creation of liquidity pools, which is like a highly financial thing, but it kind of matters if you want to create sustainable communities around assets. So we get into pretty deep waters quite rapidly. But here, in order to create the conditions, in order to explore what it means to create liquidity pools, I sometimes go back to this wonderful little quote. So it goes like this. Now the components are used for organizing a space, not for the momentary determination of a center. The forces of chaos are kept outside as much as possible, and the interior space protects the germinal forces of a task to fulfill or a deed to do. Finally, one opens the circle a crack, opens it all the way, lets someone in, it calls someone, or else goes out oneself, launches forth. One opens the circle not on the side where the old forces of chaos press against it, but in another region, one created by the circle itself. As though the circle tended on its own to open onto a future, as a function of the working forces it shelters. This time, it is in order to join with the forces of the future, the cosmic forces. One launches forth, hazards an improvisation, but to improvise is to join with the world or meld with it. I don't know, it's highly poetic, but it feels so close to home when it comes to experimenting with people coming from different fields and really actively imagine the recursive possibilities of engaging with the blockchain space and creating new modes of value capturing and new modes of exposing value. So the question of value capturing is really important, and that's, you can feel it already. It's a bit of it's a pharmacon, you know, it's something that is both an antidote and a poison. We're working with new forms of ownership. Like coming from How to Save the Common of Communism, I wouldn't have thought that I would be so deep into really hard trying to think what form of collective ownership can we create in order to transform our economic conditions. So this is like a more of a high-level presentation of what we're doing, but that really is what we're doing on a daily basis. Just that we don't stay at that philosophical level. We try to concretize it into a proposition that addresses the needs of the circus artists and performing artists more directly. So I don't know, Ole, if you want to take it from there.
Sure, I could take it from there. What I could yeah, I mean, just think what I could begin with is to actually just invite you to more to like the concrete sphere world as we have it right now, and invite you to the website actually, and just go chronologically to what we've been doing, and I think that because I would like to have the time and opportunity to do that.
Nice.
So one thing here that you will notice when you enter this space is that you land actually in the end of a timeline. We're landing in 2024, and the only way to kind of like travel in this space is to go backwards at the moment, and backwards all the planned activities for the future in the next 3 years. So it's a bit you have to rethink a little bit, and what we try to present here is different bundles of maybe fragments that belong together that you can enter into as one kind of world that unfolds a bit. And here so the first thing that you find is basically how to time travel, because we think that we can at least be quite nice to people to start to understand this a little bit this counterintuitive way of working. But basically, you learn a little bit about time traveling, and then you go to the 2024 manifesto of what has happened until then. You can also take a little quick route to today's date. We're just going to have a retreat in Berlin coming up very soon. Now we just changed the date for it, so I have to change up for that. But and then we can go back to the beginning, and then we have the possibility to trace the whole project basically. So this is what this page is. It's like a archive, and we're thinking about it as a living archive also, where what we first now anticipate or what we think or prefigure will happen will then turn into what has happened and the memories of what has happened. So this is the way we go for it, and it's until 2024 because we're actually having this Creative EU project until 2024. Of course, the sphere progress beyond 2024, how we see it, but it's really like kind of frame the research project at least. And here you can like dive into different newsletters, and I think that Erik will do that soon. But just want to.
You want to jump into the second one we just passed, or?
Yeah, I can do that. Sure. So we started to create these newsletters together in a kind of loom method, where one person, the sun, gets kind of overall responsibility over the earth and the wind, where the wind brings in the kind of fragments or ideas or kind of themes or quotes, and then the earth is basically putting that together into like creating derivative of that, making it somewhat more readable or understandable, or putting a context to it. And then the sun is like the editor. This is how
we have a rotating structure for the editing of the newsletter, and the newsletter is there to activate the network basically. Like at the beginning of the project, we have partners across Europe. We have like over 10 partners, circus companies across Europe. We have the core team as well. We have Stockholm School of Economics. There's 2 researchers there that are also part of the network. So the newsletter is answering a very basic need, is like how to get to know each other. And it was COVID time, so we couldn't even meet in person. So the rotating newsletter has been a very nice device that we invented, inspired by Loom economy, in order to create a bit of a flow within the network itself. Because it's one thing to create the digital infrastructure for the communication, it's another to create the beginning of a culture of speculative generosity. So in each letter, there is a cliffhanger at the end of it, which is a question that gets addressed by the new wind. The wind is the new person that comes into the editing process. And that allows to create actually an amazing collective intelligence device. So in this one, I was the wind. I was a bit traumatized, happily traumatized by the fact that we got the grant, but also that a bit of a self-reflection in the sense that we got a big grant to now disrupt mode of fundings, and maybe upgrade a little bit the condition, because like every artist is also a grant writer, or how to put it, Truffaut, the filmmaker, used to say everyone has 2 jobs, their job and cinema critique. And these days it's a little bit, you're an artist and you're a grant writer by night. And grant writing has many advantages, to be fair with the current system, but there is a moment where we feel, and that's something maybe we can discuss a little bit further on, but there's kind of a bottleneck when it comes to the type of intelligence that is generated every year with all the propositions that are privately issued and then secretly, anonymously evaluated, and then the funding gets dispatched. And there's probably, I mean, this is a good system for certain reasons, but there's probably a way to maybe bifurcate or create a parallel system where the intelligence that is generated at the issuance moment could maybe circulate differently, which would mean we step out of the artist as genius, you know, like singular person generating their brilliant ideas, and maybe create a little bit more of an incubation mode. And that is one of the elements that we're trying to address with the sphere right now. So yeah, and so yeah, it like the newsletter, it's a minor technology. It doesn't require, we do it on Google Docs, you know, but it created a genuine collective intelligence flow that we're all very proud of, and it's a bit of a thrill each time that you get to edit the newsletter. Yeah, I don't know for you, Ulle, how.
Yeah, it's very interesting also to get you know, often how this loop has worked is also that you're working at something particular at the very moment where you get invited. So you start to kind of read the cliffhanger of the newsletter before, but you're also somewhere else, completely else, and you have to kind of now try to bridge these places. And I think it's it's been like a great exercise, but also a great like way of also getting to know each other by talking about subjects that you wouldn't reach otherwise, but it's really connected to what you work with. I think it's been beautiful. I think for the website you can of course check it out yourselves. What's interesting, we have the Sphere TV, we have a newsletter that you can sign up for. So, and this is great because we would of course like you to kind of join us now, since we've been talking with you and you want to like interact with us or join the adventure. Then we're happy. Like you will be able to. We will create a more of a community. We have a Discord group and a Telegram group and so on. So it's this is a perfect good way to get in contact with us as well. But just wanted to start by showing it. I think what has been very important with the sphere is I mean it's kind of an idea where we like how can we as artists actually dare to or have a reason or incentive to share the knowledge and the kind of adventures that we really go through in our artistic processes, that we have no other place or reason to share, like in a cosmolocal way, or what to say, like we in a way where we can share to our peers around the globe that has the same niche and interest, and also that we can kind of benefit from sharing through some like through connecting ourselves with the artwork, reworking each other's works and so on, and also put a kind of economic layer on top of that. So this is also what we're hinting at in the website when I show you the stack of these different fragments that opens up a new world. This could be like the whole creative process of one specific artwork that you can gain access to, open, and then take part of to then recreate what has happened, or like be creating a derivative form of that work. And I think this is key in what is the value. What are the value propositions in this Web3 community, basically?
If I can bounce on that, the 3 labs that we had in the spring, we created some sort of recursive structure for them as well. So basically in the Anarchive lab, there were fragments that were issued. They were issued by anarchivists, and you will see where they come back shortly. The anarchivist, it's like we're creating a new role, but you see, because we're reflecting on new forms of value, value is a lot about transmission in time, in a way or another. Something of value continues to exist or gets relayed into the future. And we're trying to enact that in the way that we also connected the 3 strand of research with fragments. Fragments, it can be really anything. It can be quotes. It's an easy one. It's one that works very nicely. But it can also be, like, for instance, if I show you, let me see. I can show you a fragment that was actually produced by one of the anarchivists during the first Anarchive lab. No, I cannot. Let Okay, great. So the accounting otherwise, the main picture here is a picture that was generated during the Anarchive lab and became the main picture of the accounting otherwise. It's again very playful, but it's the idea that for ourselves we're creating a memory, we're creating a way for certain fragments to loop themselves into existence and create what Olle was referring to also as derivatives, meaning that something issued at a certain moment in time gets modified, iterated with, and changed the course and is brought into the future. And this is really one of the core elements that we have in mind while designing some form of economic model around performances. So, yeah, these are elements that we don't get to talk so much about. It's very nice, Olle, I find, to be able to describe it more in details, because these really matters for the life of the sphere, and they really matter for what is coming up next, which is our open call for season 2 of the sphere.
Yes. So I can share if you stop sharing,
Yep.
and then I will go for it. So I will now take you through what's happening exactly now with the sphere, because we had a lovely like retreat where we could meet again in Paris not long ago after quite a long time of being working distributed, but also like refrain from meeting each other. And what happened during these days was very interesting, because we came up with the like a quite clear roadmap for the next upcoming year. And we started by tapping into an existing circus network called Circus Next that exists in Europe, and basically it's been existing for 20 years, and it's always been like selecting companies and artists that have been like applying to find new ways of presenting circus, basically. And they have some of these works during the last 20 years has been quite important for the contemporary circus scene. And what we did now is that we started a collaboration with Circus Next, where we also offer all the past like laureates for the last 20 years to actually join us, and they can have like works like the performance that they did for Circus Next 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 2 years ago or last year. They can kind of put them into a new kind of phase, like a performance that is in a stage between stages, basically, that you can put it in and display it in a virtual gallery, more or less, but it's combined of fragments or different particles or different important parts of your artistic process to then be actually invested in different ways. So what we do is we went out with this application phase, and now next week we expect approximately 30 companies and artists to kind of have applied to us, and then we're gonna create a quadratic voting session that is quite small. This is just because we have been offering, or we're thinking that we will use quadratic voting as a way of like having the governance together in the sphere will be a lot around quadratic voting for which work will be selected for different iterations, or we can talk about that later. But we will do a small version of this for us to feel what it's like to do the quadratic voting scenario for reals with some skin in the game. Yeah.
Just one word about what is quadratic voting. It's a simple mechanism. Let's say you get 100 tokens for voting. If you put them all on one proposition, you will be automatically penalized by the system. So it's a system that favorizes the distribution of preferences across different propositions and not only one. So it's just a mathematical formula that encourages you to distribute your preferences across different options. So no more, no less. Yeah.
But here you can also get a feel of the Gesamtkunstwerk in this, because we're digging into everything. Like, what if we could do it in this way instead, and not that? So it's quite interesting. We will have 6 selected works that we call boxes, basically, that will be actually they will be minted as NFTs. But an NFT can be so much more than a flat JPEG that is minted and just presented as an artwork. It's actually there's so many possibilities of how we can use NFT as a way of creating community and co-owning and so on. So what we're going to do here is that each work and each artist will propose a kind of representation of their work, but it's not a representation as a video stream of their work. It's something that represents their work however they want it to be represented in this virtual space, actually.
So these six selected work out of they are presented in the virtual gallery, 3D virtual gallery, and basically we're offering these six artists or six groups of artists kind of a training session. We call it enrichment process and an archiving process, and they prepare their work to become an NFT, but also to be picked up to become the source of future derivation of their work. So it's kind of like preparing, it's like creating the seed for future becoming of your own work.
And what we're playing with is I mean, this is also for reals, but it's also, of course, a part of the research itself, because what we're doing now is to really have real work we're building community as we also start researching how will this iteration of the different works kind of function, and what will be the kind of economical parameters, like how much, if someone let's say that you can in this gallery you can actually invest into the works in different ways, right? So they're presented there, but they are also presented as objects that you can invest in, and this is in a way that you can have several co-owners of each work, right? So when you invest in the work, how much will go to the common pool or the shared resources for the Sphere community? How much will go back to the artist? How much will go for future iterations of that exact work? How much will go back to investors? This is like parameters that we will also work with. And I think that it's quite important to mention this in a very like blunt way, because it's a really important factor actually for the Sphere. And then when we have selected like the one box that the Sphere can actually invest in straight away to create derivatives of, then we will have another open call for. So first we have like a mega vote where we invite audience and local artists from all our partner countries. So we have, as Erik said, we have like several partners from different countries. We have approximately like 500, 600 voters in our mega vote, and this will be all kinds of people from the ecosystem selected by their local partner, basically. So here in Sweden, we will reach out to Swedish venues, but also artists, also audience, like the friends of Saloranta de Wilde or whatever, and also people that we think that we can like just reach out to that would be interested in following this research and be a part of this community under formation, basically.
So we consider like already being in the virtual gallery is great, because you get your work to be worked through the archiving process and the enrichment process, that is, it turns into a GenFTs, a generative NFT. But also we already have a budget as a Sphere to finance 3 performances, pilot performances. So that's the reason also why there is a mega vote. It's a way to produce audience development, to produce engagement from the audience, like people will have a say into which work gets produced, but also so it's a way for us to open up, like instead of just privately deciding here this performance gets presented and all, we open it up to the whole of the network, basically. And then I don't know if you see on the image, there is like this one initial like Genesis box, let's say, and then there is 2 performances that derives from this original one. And so this is also a way, it's a prototype to start building, like we were saying before, like the idea of the derivative of something that comes from somewhere and then evolves into another direction. So we have a system here where we will create the prototype to have to follow the evolution of one work into different iterations.
Yeah. The Sphere Gallery. It's actually like here we're going into like details that we have to say that we're really like designing. But imagine also like that the gallery itself is also a way to kind of invest in the milieu, right? So you invest straight into whatever's inside it instead of a specific artwork. So you can also be giving to the community and then distribute the resources according to code, basically, what is decided within the community. And this can be done in different ways. And then we see that we don't have to dig into this too much also, but we see that we will have used different kinds of like community tokens, membership tokens, and ownership tokens. And this can give different voting weights and different ways of participating with the different works in the community and so on. And also to propose, I want to create a work to like, and this is what we propose. And then you can actually have this as a parallel funding channel next to the traditional funding strategies. This can also be a way of matching that, or a way of skipping that, or however you want to relate to the sphere and what the sphere can become. So it's a parallel funding channel, basically. And here's Joel Mason. Maybe you don't know him, but he's the anarchivist 3.0 we wanted to show.
Maybe I can show the film. So if it wasn't clear enough, now we're going to present you, let me see, I share the screen here. We made a little video for our circus artists so that they can jump in. So here, the open call. Let me see.
The Sphere is a group of people working on new business models for the performing art world. And in the 2021-2022 season, we are bringing our experimentation to a whole other level through a collaboration with Circus Next. Over the past 20 years, Circus Next has awarded laureate positions to some 80 artists, artistes du cirque that took circus to new expression and new vistas for creation. Enter the Sphere, Circus Tech project with Circus Next roots and EU funding, arriving with an idea to augment our world, to reinvent how we in circus fund ourselves and give that money to more artists. This November, the Sphere issues a call for past laureates to apply to have their original performances re-enlivened by new artists, created from what we call a box. The box is like a time capsule with a future mission. The box is like a love letter to the future from the past, and we are its veins. First, 6 artists or companies will be chosen out of the applicants to build and display their work in a 3D online gallery in March 2022. In order to make this, they are gifted with experts for the creation of an NFT and artists specializing in future-oriented archive building. Next, Sphere calls for a mega vote, where the winning box get €10,000 as well as an artist residency in Berlin spring 2022 for the production of a performance stemming from the winning box. Thirdly, later in 2022, we will stage another large-scale voting experiment where we invite artists to propose new work deriving from the previous primordial box of the Circus Next laureate. Here, the Sphere offers $10,000 each to 2 winning proposals to produce and perform the works. Now we have the beginnings of a chain of valuable memory, a provenance machine that can pass small percentages back to projects that inspired and out to common pools that fund further generative artistic propositions like this one. All participating artists apply because they believe in experimenting with new approaches to business in the arts, and that we put our own skin in the game to do so. You're interested? I knew it. Apply by November 1st, 2021 for past Circus Next laureates, and May 1st, 2022 for artists proposing new work out of laureate boxes. This is the Sphere. Take care.
Okay. So that's really where we're at. And yeah, let's maybe discuss.
Thank you so much, Ole and Erik. I mean, I'm confused, and I hope you too. So there's the first question.